1, 2, 3.
Hello, welcome to Rock the Cash Bar. I'm Ben Mowbray.
And I'm Diane Gallagher.
Every week we pick one song and do a deep dive into the lyrics and explain the different ways they've been interpreted.
We will also discuss how the song connected to us on a personal level, focusing on all the embarrassing details.
Glad to have you here. Enjoy the show.
Diane,
Yeah.
somebody with massive political clout in my family has decided to combine Thanksgiving and Christmas. I don't know that I approve.
No. Okay, I do. Let me hear your argument first. First, presents are still on the table, right?
Presents are still very much on the table. And I think that's why I'm feeling the pressure of it. It's just like, I thought I had 2 more months to get that together. Like, no, I've got 2 weeks.
So
like, I don't.
Are they making Christmas happen in November?
Yes.
Oh, no, I don't like that.
We've sent the magical letters to Santa Claus. Like we've submitted the relevant paperwork. Apparently, Santa has he's got the ability to deliver a month early if you're nice.
Yeah. So wait, are you having to get little kids on board? Are there little kids in your family that have to be on board with this, or is this
not
the
little
adults?
kids? Okay. Not little kids. No, we're talking very young teenagers. That have to come on board. And they probably, we're kids young enough that they want to spend less time with us anyway.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, I don't. I'm just amazed that anyone, even my mom, I'm amazed that anybody has the power to make that sort of thing happen.
I'm okay with, and I know I talked about I like to decorate my house for Thanksgiving, but honestly, we were talking about this before we started. I think America is slowly saying we don't care about Thanksgiving anymore. Everyone I know, the day after Halloween, decorated their houses for Christmas. My neighbors have the Christmas lights up. Everybody's just like, Thanksgiving, whatever. And I was like, okay. And then, I talked to Sarah Talamash about this, and she, like someone who doesn't live anywhere near their family anymore, they're like, you can't expect us to come home twice in 2 months. So I'm like, let's move Thanksgiving to 4th of July. Just combine the two. We'll eat hot dogs and apple pie and be thankful that we live in America, and just leave the Native Americans out of it. We don't want to talk about that anymore. Let's just get rid of Thanksgiving.
Leaving them out in a respectful way.
Yeah, I don't mean like fuck them and their history. I just mean like, we've made a mockery of like, we were such good friends with them. Like, that's not.
I think you're anticipating the argument. Like, you combine Thanksgiving with 4th of July. Like, what are the liberals up to now?
Oh, yeah. I'm just like, look, Americans don't care about it anymore. So let's get rid of it. They make canned pumpkin. I can make pumpkin pie in July.
Oh, I didn't think about that. Yeah, there is a seasonal element to Thanksgiving that I am for this. I am for the combination of Thanksgiving and the 4th of July. I'm absolutely for it. Yeah. We are going to have to change our diets for it. There's no reason why we can't have a feast in November. Yeah. A football feast.
Yeah, make it football day. You can still have a parade and football. But the pressure of getting your whole family together should go away for Thanksgiving.
I think I agree. with that. We're free to do this. We're adults.
Another thing, and it's funny because I heard Joe List talk about this on his podcast, and I was like, am I the only other one who remembers this? I thought our nation, Congress, was getting rid of daylight savings, the part right now where it gets dark early. I thought we were doing away with it. And then everybody forgot about it. And then he brought it up. Like, he was telling people like, no, we don't have to do it this year. And they're like, no, we do. And I looked back and it stalled. It was supposed to get voted on and then it stalled, and they just haven't brought it back to the table. But I'm like, please bring this back to the table. No one likes it getting dark at 4. Nobody likes this anymore. Look, I'm going to run for president with really stupid agendas.
Can you start now?
Yeah.
Can you make that happen? Please.
Yeah.
But really, please. I'll fund it. I got $5 American for you.
Thank you. Speaking of $5, that's all Ian McKay wanted to charge people that came to his shows. We're going to talk about some cheap punk rock and Fugazi today.
Can I tell you how much I know about Fugazi and punk rock in general? Fuck all. I know almost nothing about it. I don't think any genre of music with the exception of hip hop, has intimidated me as much as punk rock. Like I sort of stay out of it out of respect.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that I'll never understand it. I don't know all the ins and outs. I don't know the whole vocabulary. I like it. I enjoy it, but it's not that it's not for me. I think it is for me, but it's just like because it's so tribal and so I don't know. You know how to. Yeah, there's a lot of there's some gatekeeping motherfuckers wearing punk rock
it's
t-shirts.
also not just one thing. It gets confusing and fights within its own genre of like what it is, and we'll talk about that today. And I think that's what a lot of punks are punks in the way that they think they get it and they don't get it. There's a lot of that, and I mean, and you can. That's the thing, is you can like it any way you want. You can define it any way you want, but I like the way Ian MacKaye defines it. And I like his music can be a little screamy and a little hard, but when you talk to him just on like a one-on-one basis, his thoughts on it are just so fucking chill. Like so chill. He is not angry, like fuck the man, fuck the system. He is like super chill, just more like, oh, I just don't need it. I'm just going to do it myself. I don't need the man. Like, I'm just going to do it myself. That's the DIY, grassroots punk that he believes in. And like, yeah, I get that. I like that a lot.
Yeah, it's like, what are you so worried about? This doesn't affect you.
Yeah.
You'll be fine. There's no need to go into the streets and start waving your signs around. So it's like that kind of calm. Like, it's okay.
Yeah, he's very chill. I connect with him so much on things like, he was giving this talk at Loyola. I always have a problem saying that, Loyola, University, and talking about how he was never really goal oriented. And when you hear the lyrics to the song, it seems like, well, no, you're talking about getting out there and making something of yourself. But he's like, he always just lives in the present. He's like, I'm focused on what I'm doing right now. I'm focused on what I'm writing right now. I'm going to produce this right now. And it reminded me so much on the interview I had with the last job I had, the last corporate job I had it from like 2010 to 2013. When I interviewed for that position, they asked that boilerplate question, where do you see yourself in 5 years? And I was the most honest I've ever been. And I was always really honest in interviews. I never just gave the answer they wanted to hear. And I looked right in her eyes and I was like, I don't know. And I told her, I was like, what I hope to be is to be happy, but I don't do that thing. I don't give, because there's only one answer they're looking for. It's like, I want to be creative director in 5 years. And they want to see that you have like this timeline of progress. And I was like, I don't know if I'm going to like working here yet. I don't know if I like the job culture yet. I don't know if I like the projects I'm going to be given. What I hope to be is happy wherever I've landed. And what's funny is that the woman interviewing me wasn't there 2 years later herself. She moved on. Because I was just like, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to sit there and be like, in 5 years, I want your job. I was just like, I don't know, but I hope wherever I know that wherever I've landed in 5 years, I did it because that was my choice and I was happy to make that choice. And I got that job.
There's an emotional honesty to that. Yeah. I was like the joke. Where do you see yourself in 5 minutes? There
could be an
really put him on the spot.
Yeah, really. So yeah, there's a lot to love about Ian MacKaye, especially because look, I liked punk music. I liked all of it. I liked Dead Kennedys. I liked the screaming against the man. I like the energy involved in it. But when it comes to reality, I've always been like, I can think clearly. And I'm more for like, he was just a smart, down-to-earth guy who just knew what he wanted and wasn't an asshole about it ever. I like the non-asshole punk rocker. Yeah.
I like that they're mature about it. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of punk rock that I listen to, and I'm just like, okay, well, you're not always going to feel like, all right, you're 18, you're 19 years old. Like, you're not going to feel that way when you're 43.
Yeah,
you're not going to be that
exactly.
angry. Like, every time I hear a Green Day song, I'm just like, Billy Joe Armstrong is like in his mid 50s. And he's still out there tonight singing songs about jerking off in his mom and dad's house.
So funny.
Like, he's literally like what a weird prison to put yourself in, but like,
have to sing about that
didn't do that to himself. Joe Strummer didn't do that to himself.
No, but Ian MacKaye, what's funny about him is so we're going to get into it. Minor Threat, when he like, okay, so his bands went from Teen Idols, which was IDLES, like not idle, but like idle hands, which I think is
Yeah.
the best name for a punk band. I wish they had kept that. But it went Teen Idols, Minor Threat, Embrace, Fugazi. And they're most known as being like a straight edge band. And I have like a whole thing that I wrote about like what he says about that, because he wrote the song Straight Edge when he was in Minor Threat, and he's like, I wrote this in high school, like I was a teenager when I wrote these lyrics, and it wasn't calculated, I wasn't trying to start a movement, I was just writing about like how me and my friends were. He was like, most of the people in high school around me were engaging in like teenage rebellion culture, especially the punk kids, and like smoking and drinking, and he's like being extremely self-destructive in the name of rebellion, and he's like, I just didn't get it. And he's like, we just weren't like that, we just wanted to play shows and go to movies and skateboard and be functional. This idea of just getting like blitzed out of your mind, and like I don't think his brain just didn't understand it as rebellious. He's like, no, I want to make the stuff I'm making, I don't get it. And so he wrote Straight Edge, and then not realizing it just became like a movement, like you're this or this, you're straight edge or you're fucking round edge or whatever coming up with. And he was just like taken aback by it. Like he's like, now I was just talking about like what me and my friends do. Like I'm not saying everybody needs to be, I'm just talking like I'm writing personal shit about like just how I feel about the world. So he never meant for it, but he's like, it was out of my hands. It just took off. We were the straight edge band. Like we were being called like church boys and Mormons and all this stuff. And he was like, I don't know. I always saw like the punk scene as like these marginalized group of people trying to find like their place. And he's like, I thought it was funny. Like in the punk scene, I was the guy not, getting fucked up, and they were looking at me like, what the fuck are you? And he was like, that's the punk. Yeah.
I remember the first time I saw a friend like stoned. I was like 13 or 14 years old. And I remember just like looking at it, just like, where's the fun in that? Like, what is this accomplishing? Like he was high on pot and mushrooms. So he was more or less like catatonic, like non-communicative, and also 13 years old on pot and mushrooms, so unable to communicate what's happening anyway. But I just remember looking at it, just like, I don't understand where the fun is. I don't see how you're going to enjoy that. And your mom's going to be here to pick you up in like 3 hours, so you're going to have to hurry this up.
Yeah. I remember the same thing. Is like, it always made me laugh, like how people who are getting high think they're having such deep thoughts, and they were just like, you don't get it. And I was like, no, I get it, you sound fucking stupid. Like I want to record you play this back for you later and be like, oh, it's not real deep because it sounded stupid. Oh God,
it's how I relax my troubled mind.
Yeah, I was doing a lot of thinking like on this about the idea while researching this, the people like who kind of get it and the people that don't, when we talk about like a lot of punk music was about activism and railing against the system and going against conventions and stuff. And then I saw the I don't know, these activists had like busted up a painting, like an old classic painting, and in the name of like climate change. And I was just reading the arguments of people who are like, no, this is not how you do this. This is so fucking stupid. And watching the arguments back and forth. And I was like, it was such a clear example of the people who get it and the people who don't get it. And those people who busted that thing, I was like, they're so young. And I was like, it was all about attention. They just wanted attention, because otherwise it shows them with their happy faces, like against the painting. And I was like, if you really just wanted to focus on climate change, you would have done that anonymously, and you wouldn't be like your smiling face in front of it. And what's the worst about these people is they will argue with you as if you don't get it. They get it. You don't get it. And I'm like, no, you don't get it. And what we see is that you're absolutely transparent and you just want attention, and it sucks.
Exactly.
It sucks what you're doing for the movement.
They think of as a good cause to go and justify all of their bad behavior.
Yes.
And it's true, like all over the spectrum and all over the world. Like how many people How many people at any political riot do you think like really believe in the cause, or how many
Nope.
people are just like, I want to throw a brick through a window?
Yep.
But
And I don't stand behind that fucking action. I don't.
Mhm.
It's distracting to that's what it becomes, is distracting to what the thing that you're trying to accomplish. And it just makes people hate you more and hate the cause more. You're giving them fodder to hate the idea of climate change more. You're doing the worst thing you can possibly do for it.
Yeah. Like I wasn't really planning on buying a fur coat, but every time I see you throw a bucket of paint on somebody who does,
I know.
it makes me want to go, want to go mink shopping.
Yeah, these people just don't get it. All right, well, so what's fun about these lyrics is Ian MacKaye was just very, very specific in what he was trying to say with these lyrics, but it creates great metaphor and imagery when you read it out loud and be like, okay, well, you could go a lot of places with it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
you kind of, I feel like we have to do our impression of like the boogie woogie bass line that the song is known for.
It's so catchy. It's so good.
If you think you haven't heard this song, I guarantee you have.
Yeah.
Like if you'd asked me, like a couple of years ago, like, do you know any Fugazi songs? Like, I absolutely do not. I'm like, yeah, you do.
Yeah, you do.
They have a wallpaper song.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, I'll stop.
I am a patient boy. My time to want to start a train.
I am a patient boy. I wait. My time watered down a drain. Yeah.
Yeah.
It starts off positive. Like, I'm a patient boy. That's a good thing. He's waiting. My time is water. That's not good. Water is the source of life, and it's going down the drain.
Yep.
All of this waiting is not good for him.
And yeah, just wasted.
Mm-hmm. Everybody's moving. Everybody's moving. Please don't leave me to remain.
Every time I heard the beginning of this song, it made me think of Folsom Prison.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Like everybody else is moving and I'm just stuck here. And I think that's why a lot of people tried to draw parallels when they were talking about, what does this song mean? I read one on Reddit that was just sure that this was about someone in prison, like waiting to get out.
Yeah, I mean it's open enough that it could be that it very much could be that, but also that like everybody's moving. Like it makes me think of like a still man in a crowd. Like somebody like sitting on a park bench or something like that as everybody's like bustling by. Like he's waiting for the opportunity. He's not necessarily out there. He's like a coiled snake.
Yeah,
waiting for the chance to strike.
Like waiting for your chance to get in there. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like he's not going with the grain, but there's a moment he's not quite going against it yet, but he's at that still moment where like he's stopped, he's taking stock of the situation, he's watching where everybody is moving, and he's about to decide what direction he's going.
Moment. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, when I was young, the first time I heard this song, I was taking waiting room literally as a doctor's waiting room, and I, for the longest time, had this idea of. I couldn't understand it because I was like, all right, he's in a waiting room and we'll get to the next lyric. I don't want the news. I thought that he was waiting to hear someone he loved in the hospital had died or something, but we'll get to that.
Mm-hmm. In the waiting room, I don't want the news. I cannot use it. I don't want the news. I won't live by it. Yeah. Very scary.
Yeah. So when I was like a teenager, I was like, oh, he's stressing out in a waiting room, waiting to hear the worst news of his life. And then, and I think I didn't think about this song much else for years after that until I decided to do this episode and then started reading about it. And I was like, oh, I think I'm real far off, but it makes sense that I thought that.
Yeah, it does. It's not a paranoia. It's he's got this like it feels to me like he's got this general sense that everybody else is wrong, that whatever goal they're working towards is not quite right. Like he doesn't have his own ideas squared tightly away in his head yet. It's like it's a moment of decision.
Yeah.
Sitting outside of town, everybody's always down because they can't get up. Come on and get up. Come on and get up.
Sitting outside of town, everybody's always down. Tell me why? Because they can't get up. Come on and get up. Come on and get up.
Come on and
All
get
right.
up.
Mhm.
So misheard song lyric, I always thought in the parentheses when it says tell me why, which was Guy Picciotto singing that part. We'll get to him. He's a fun character, but I thought he was yelling too high when he's like, everybody's always down too high because they can't get up. And I was like, oh, now he's talking about people on drugs who are just too high and can't get up. I didn't know that he was yelling, tell me why. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, well, I like
Too high would be fun.
Too high
Yeah,
was fun.
that's his own kind of waiting room. You know, you go, you get high. The universe's mysteries are revealed to you, but you're too incapacitated to do anything about it just yet.
Yeah.
All you can do is hope to smuggle some of that feeling back into the sober world.
Yeah. Exactly.
Use it to guide you when you're ready for action.
Yes. Because they can't get up. Come on and get up. Yeah, and this is where the song, starts changing into that positive, like, he's like, okay, well, I'm going to step on your lyrics. Read the next lyric, and then I'll say what I was going to say.
But I don't stand by. I'm planning a big surprise. I'm gonna fight for what I wanna be, and I won't make the same mistake. Feeling how much time that way. Function is the key.
But I don't sit idly by. I'm planning a big surprise. I'm going to fight for what I want to be, and I won't make the same mistakes because I know how much time that wastes. And function is the key. Yeah, it's hard to read that, like knowing how influential Ian MacKaye was in the straight edge movement, and not think that that's a deliberate call to straight edge action right there.
Well, also, okay, what you'll find out more, we're going to talk, Corbin was like, you have to talk about Discord Records and, his record label that he started. And I was like, God, do I want to get all into that? And then I was like, no, it's tied directly to this song. So I have to. So we're going to talk about later about not wasting time and not making mistakes and being functional and starting your own record label and doing things the way you want to do it. Because I think that's where exactly what he's talking about in this song.
Making the world making the world fit you.
Yeah.
To the waiting room. I don't want the news. I can't use it. I don't want the news. I won't live by it. Sitting outside of town. Everybody's always down. Tell me why, because they can't get up. Come on and get up from the waiting room. That's it. That is more or less the lyrics.
In the waiting room. The video that you find for this is just one live performance that he does in this. It's dimly lit in this dingy club. And it's I look in the crowd and I was like, I don't see one girl. It just looks like it's a bunch of shirtless, skinny boys. But so there's so much to say about Ian MacKaye. Like he did Minor Threat, which was a lot like more like really fast. Like each song, I swear, it felt like it was a minute long. And he had the messages about like straight edge. And when he did Fugazi, which was later, like 1988, he had already done Embrace, which he kind of shifted into more of like a slower pace, more introspective lyrics. And they were trying to say this was the beginning of emo. It was like more emotionally charged music. And this was actually the beginning of emo, which I've always hated that term for music, but that's what they say, at least in one YouTube guy's explanation of these bands. But God, where was I going with that? Oh, so Fugazi was different. And God, I lost my train of thought of where I wanted to go with that, because there's so much to say about Ian MacKaye, and I want to say it all, and I'm scared I'm going to end this without saying all the things that I wanted to say. Okay, well, I'll say this. What he says about this song is that he wanted to ensure the longevity of his new project, which was Fugazi after Embrace. And he said he was absolutely determined that he was not going to make the same mistakes this time around. It's his song about waiting for the right people in the right moment. And it's more about like not waiting. So the brief history of what happened with Ian MacKaye and Discord Records is like he started as a teenager, and like Teen Idols was his first band. And so they had been playing for like a year and they decided to break up. And so they had this shoebox of $600 that they were like, all right, after playing like 35 shows, they're like, let's divide up this money. And then they're like, or we could take this $600 and not break up and make a new record. And so they knew that like no record label was going to sign them, especially since they had like broken up. And so they went to their friend who owned a record shop and kind of had his own little record label and was just like, how do we do this? And so he just gave them the basics of how you do this. And so I'm giving like the Cliff's Notes version of what happened with Discord Records. So they did that. They put their money in and they did it super DIY, like where they made their own artwork for the, like it was a tape. They made their songs and they got the tape pressed, and then they printed out the artwork on like 11 by 17 paper and was like cutting it out and folding it and stuffing it in the little, like, I mean, completely DIY, did it all themselves. And it worked. They ended up, putting out their first EP. And then they said, in the time that it took to record together, a lot of activity in the DC, they're from Washington, DC. The punk scene, all these members of Teen Idols were breaking apart and making their own new bands, including Ian MacKaye. He started Minor Threat. And then let's see, just to give them their names, like bands like SOA, Government Issue, Youth Brigade, and his brother's band, the Untouchables, were still playing. And so they wanted to take the money they got from their EP and like, okay, let's help these bands make albums now. And so they got this house in Arlington, and it just became like the Discord house. And so like the bedrooms and the basement, like it was just the whole punk scene was there all the time. All these people like recording, and they eventually SOA put out an EP first and then another band, and it started to get to where they couldn't keep up with the demand. So they ended up doing so well, they had to partner with Southern Studios in London, which is a partnership that's still working today. But so they did it. And it was always like, he was always super proud of like not selling out to a bigger record label, because he was like, it was never about making music for profit. It was like just the real punk scene of just making music to make music and get it out there. And so for years after that, there were lulls, like, they were never dealing with more than 6 bands at a time. And sometimes, nothing was happening. But then there was this big resurgence in the 90s after Nirvana's Nevermind hit big with Sub Pop Records. And so there was this huge interest in independent labels. And apparently Fugazi was getting really, really big, and Waiting Room had hit it really, really big. It just like in the underground scene, and these record labels were coming and wanting to buy Discord Records. And he said no. He just didn't want to do it. Let's see, he said, we understood the value of self-determination, and because the label was so well established, we weren't faced with the same circumstances as many other bands and labels at the time. So it was just it spoke to the fact there were so many times he could have sold out, but he didn't. And to this day, he still has Discord Records. And they just he said the biggest thing about before the 90s, a lot of it was like volunteer status, and maybe not everybody got paid. But after the 90s and after Fugazi, he was like, not only were we able to pay everybody, but we were able to offer insurance and health benefits. He says to this day is his biggest achievement with running Discord Records, which was really cool.
I think we're a proper above the board corporation.
Yeah.
God, that does have to be a life-changing thing. Like, I rented a little business for the last 3 months, and I would have loved to like hire people for real. I mean, I did have people that were working with us, but it was just like we were paying them under the table.
Yeah.
I didn't take down anybody's social security number. I certainly didn't get anybody health insurance. So that really would be a game-changing.
Yeah.
Like an I've arrived moment.
Yeah.
I'm a proper businessman.
Yeah. And, with him, it's always just been about the music, where he had this thing where he didn't want to play a show and charge over $5. And he's like, and I want kids to be able to come. And when he says kids, he means teenagers, because he was like, when did you start listening to music? Teenagers, 14, 15. And there were so many shows back when he started that you had to be 21 to get in. And he was like, but it's the 15-year-olds that are into it. And so, I mean, so he really wanted to do shows that were affordable and that, you know, everybody could come to. And it just makes me think of all the shows I went to at Fitzgerald's that, you know, 15, that's right. It was 14, 15-year-olds like rocking out. You just couldn't drink. And we tried to figure out how to get past that. But he tells a story about you know, he would make these agreements for these shows and then he'd show up and they saw that they were charging like $8 for a ticket and he would just get mad like, what the fuck is this? We said $5 and they're like, well, we have to have these other expenses. And he'd be like, pack the truck up, we're leaving, like we're not going to do this. And then they would have to have a conversation. But
it's going to be a difficult thing to do, because how do you make money off of because like you say, 14, 15-year-old kids aren't going to be drinking, so you're not making any money at the bar. They only have $5 for the ticket. So you're literally, you're not, like, I admire it, but economically, like I could totally see promoters like begging for that extra $8. Like, come on, Ian, you don't understand.
I know.
We got to pay the vendors.
Exactly. But in his thing, he's like, well, we should have talked about that before we agreed on the $5. You know, you brought this on people at the last minute. So he had a thing about, he didn't like it was not dancing, but the mosh pit thing he didn't like. He was like, you can dance, like you can move around and stuff. But he was like, in a span of 1 year, there were 6 people, I guess, that he knew of that had come to one of his shows that got paralyzed, like from the neck down, like could never walk again. And he's like, I don't want this. Like, I don't want to promote this. And he was talking about, and he was explaining on stage at this university for this crowd. This was like in the days of MySpace. I can't remember what year he was giving this, like it's not a lecture, it was an interview. He was like, anybody at this college can just come up and ask me anything and we're just going to talk. He's like, I don't have a lecture to give, I don't have anything to say, but I'll answer any question you have. And a kid had asked, like, why don't you allow like dancing at your shows? And he's like, well, it's not dancing. He's like, though, if the people who missed out on the whole mosh pit era, he was like, it was so dumb. And he's like, and the way you did it is you would have your friends like, hey, I want to go up, throw me up. And that is how it went. But the thing is, people who are looking forward watching a show never see it coming. They just get a boot to the head because somebody's being thrown up from behind them. And it sucked. It really did. And it reminded me of like the last time I was in a pit, I was at Danzig. This was like in the 90s. I was at the Phoenix Ballroom. And I was like, told my friends, like, throw me up, I want to go up. And it was during like kind of a slow part of the song. And I was up crowd surfing. And then like the music went crazy and they just fuck her, like I dropped, I just sunk to the bottom. And it was the most scared I think I'd ever been, because I fell kind of like on the back of my neck and then like jackknife, like my knees were hitting me in the face. And when I fell, people started dancing, but tripping over me and falling on top of me. And I felt like a crunch in my neck. Like I was just like, and I was like, I just had this like fear moment where I was like, oh my God, my neck is going to break. And I couldn't get up. More people were falling on me. And finally, the thing about punk shows is that everybody was in this agreement to help each other when you see that situation. So once they peeled people off of me and, you know, and they pick you up and kind of get you out of there, I just remember holding my neck and my heart was racing. And I was like, that could have been it. Like that could have been it for me. And I never did the mosh pit again after that. And luckily I had that happen when I was like 15. I learned my lesson and got fuck out. Yeah. I was like, this is stupid. I don't know. Like, I love the energy of it and it was fun, but I was like, I'm not going to die over this. I'm not going to get paralyzed over this.
Yeah. I'm old enough that the only time I'm going to get into a mosh pit is to pull people out of it.
Sit on the edge and just be like, hey. So that's what he would do. He was at a show and there was this drunk guy who had like climbed the rafters and wanted to do like the Pearl Jam dive, and he just stopped. He would just stop the show and be like, get down. Like, he's like, we're not going to play. Like, don't do it. Like, get down. Yeah. And there was this one show, he said, where he turned on all the lights. He had them turn on like all the lights and was telling people like, you're not going to do this. And you're going to calm down. And people were like getting mad, like, fuck you. And he's like, all right, if you want us to turn the lights back off or dim them. If you can get 100 signatures and get them up to here while we play, I'll turn the lights off. And he's like, in the middle of the next song, this big piece of cardboard was flung up onto the stage with like 100 names scribbled on it. And he was like, all right, fine. And so he was like, the only lights we really had were these two like halogen lights or whatever. And he was like, turn them all off. So he played the next song in like complete darkness. And then they just went wild and were trying to like rush the stage and do more mosh pit shit. It was just out of control, but he said it was a lot of fun.
I love the idea of a rock star like treating his audience like literally like they're toddlers.
Yes. He was just
Get
like,
down from there.
yes.
You're gonna hurt yourself.
He
You're
was
going
like,
to hurt
no.
yourself. No,
Yes.
no.
He was like, look, I understand it's a punk show and people were doing this, but if I was out in the world and I saw someone like standing on like a street lamp wanting to dive into the street and be like, hey, don't do that. Like, this is a good idea. I don't want you to get hurt. But there was one part I wanted to bring up that thought was so interesting. Going back to the straight edge thing, he said when he wrote that song, he was actually inspired by the Jimi Hendrix song, If 6 Was 9, because that one line, I've got my own life to live and I'm the one that's got to die when it's time for me to die. So let me live my life the way I want to. And he said, he was like, yeah, like, leave me alone. Quit telling me what punk needs to be or how I need to act in this scene. Just let me do what I want to do. And you go do your own thing. And it seems weird in retrospect that so many like rebellious, testosterone driven teenage boys were like, who were like, yeah, you know, yeah. Because so many weren't.
Well, there's an instinct within young men. It's buried deeply, but there's an instinct to do the right thing. You know,
Yeah.
when you have somebody who's somebody like Ian MacKaye who's trying to show you what they think the right thing is, like you're also dumb enough to follow. Not that following Ian MacKaye is dumb, but you know what I mean. It's like you have this instinct to do good. Somebody demonstrates how to do good, and then your instinct to follow kicks in. You're just like, okay,
with good hard music, you know, it's not like you know. Even though Fugazi was toning it down a little bit, they still have very like hard screaming moments. So you still got to get that energy out, but you weren't like preaching violence or anarchy, you know, which is something he didn't want.
No, he doesn't want violence or anarchy. What kind of punk rocker is this?
Good one.
I want a neatly ordered society. I do too.
His whole idea, so there's this whole section in my notes on Ian's, here where we talk about, you said you were afraid of like what punk means or not even want to get involved. It's because it was never black and white. Like there was a lot of interpretations. And so when he talks about punk, he talks about in terms of, he often says the word a free space or total freedom. He said, punk is the same thing as folk, jazz, and rock. It's a free space. It's a moment in time where you are in an environment in which you have people as an audience who are mostly also players who are just interested, Profit is not dictating the situation. It's a super component of our world. The idea that there can be a free space in which to present new ideas. You can sell something no one has ever heard. So you have to remove the selling aspect of it and just share it. That's punk. So, you know, you could have been a punk guy, maybe. Maybe
in a different world.
Yeah.
I think I'm too gentle a soul to be a punk guy.
Yeah, you were more of the and I want to talk about this later because it's part of my deep cut, but the Manchester scene, the Joy Division New Order scene, which I was too, honestly. I like punk music, but that's where my heart is. That was my stuff.
I like it. The only punk band that I would say that I've ever really been like pure punk band or really been a fan of is The Clash. Like everything else I've just been dabbling a toe in. You know, like I like Gang of Four, I like the Buzzcocks, but I don't think I could tell anybody who's involved in them. You know, like I don't. Punk rock is it's almost like a religion. Like you have to know it chapter and verse, otherwise you don't belong, because
you're gonna get called a poser, and it's intimidating. Where you're like, can I just like this one song by the Dead Kennedys? Do I have to know his whole life? Like, and they're like, no,
like, you gotta know the whole thing.
God, shit, it's a lie. I can't listen to that much screaming.
Name one song other than California Uber Alles. I can't.
MTV, get off the air. So I do want to talk about so there's a guy in Fugazi that is so fun, and I just said Guy, but his name is Guy, spelled Guy, but it's pronounced Guy. Guy Peixoto. But and he was previously from the band Rites of Passage. So what Guy represents to Fugazi, a lot of people have made the comparison, is what Flavor Flav was for Public Enemy. Which to people who still are like, what? Like, think of the color commentator in sports, sports broadcasting, basically. But I took it a step
the hype
further.
Man. Everybody knows hype man.
The hype man. What I took it a step further, what I connected it to was Bez in Happy Mondays. Do you know what I'm talking about there? So, okay, this is just deep cut, like Manchester music for me. If you ever watch the movie 24-Hour Party People, and please, for the love of God, if you are into just music history at all, please go watch 24-Hour Party People. It's basically the story of this TV presenter, and in the movie it's played by Steve Coogan, who is so funny, but he plays Tony Wilson, who goes to like an early Sex Pistols gig and is just completely mind blown by this pivotal thing happening in Manchester in music. So him and his friends start Factory Records, and they start signing like Joy Division, which becomes New Order, and then the Happy Mondays. And it's just a movie about the sex, drugs, and rock and roll of then what became the biggest club on earth at the time, which was the Hacienda, which was basically like a very similar to like America's Studio 54. But it was also the beginning of like rave culture, where people were just like praising the DJ and dance music and dance culture. But it's just a really, Corbin loved that movie. And he's like, it gave me all the education of the music that you love. But it's like a really fun sex, drugs, rock and roll like type of movie. But the Happy Mondays were a band that they signed, and Happy Mondays are huge in Europe, and they had a big hit come back in the 90s. But they had this guy named Bez, and all he did on stage was shake the maracas and dance. But he had this like dance that like everybody did, and like you would go to the show and just watch Bez. And that's what Guy Peixoto was.
Job. There is a place for me in music.
Yes.
I can do that.
Yes, but when you watch Guy Peixoto or Bez, you'd be like, oh, I could do that. Oh, I could just get to be the guy on stage that dances. Are you kidding me?
Hand me my tambourine. Let's set this stadium on fire.
Yes. So when you watch any Fugazi video, if you go on YouTube, you're going to see, you're not even going to pay attention to Ian MacKaye singing. You're going to be watching Guy Peixoto going ape shit. And it was a spectacle. He's running around doing headstands. There's this one where they're playing in like a gymnasium, and he runs and grabs the basketball hoop and like puts his feet through first and then pulls his body through, and he's hanging. He's just losing his shit. He's just the psycho of the band, and super fun to watch.
Yeah, I've seen that famous picture of him hanging from the basketball hoop in the high school gym.
Yeah. So yeah, and Corbin, I don't want to tell his story because I don't remember exactly, but Corbin met Ian MacKaye when he was in high school at Friendswood, where you guys were. And Corbin and his friends apparently were doing the same thing that Ian MacKaye did. They were starting a record label and trying to put out an album. And so they talked to Ian MacKaye after one of his shows, and he was just like the coolest dude. He sat down with them and just told them like how to do it, what to do, gave them tips and pointers. And so Corbin's always just been a huge fan of Ian MacKaye because of that.
Yeah, I remember that. It was called Issue Records. Yeah. We all had Issue Records t-shirts.
Did you really? Oh, does anybody still have one? Like, I want to see that.
I bet Kelly does. I bet Kelly, you must have met Kelly O'Hare, right?
I have heard of Kelly O'Hare so much. When I went to Depeche Mode, I randomly sat next to a guy who listens to this podcast. Hi. And his wife who used to date Kelly O'Hare. And they know you and Paul and everybody. Yeah. I think I know who that is. Yeah. I'm sure Kelly probably still has a box full of Issue Records t-shirts somewhere. Oh, I bet Corbin would love to have one of those. We have to get that back.
We'll find him. We will track him down.
Okay, there's no way I talked about everything I wanted to talk about, but I think I talked about enough, honestly. I just wanted to get Fugazi back in the ears of people who maybe have never heard it. Because there's a lot of people who think like maybe they don't like punk. And I was like, but Fugazi was different. They started really playing with like reggae styles, and just the bass in every one of their songs on this album was just, they just pulled you right in. It's fun.
Yeah.
And a positive message.
Yes. My deep cut is a song called Smoko by the Chats. And it's also a punk
What
rock
language
anthem.
are you speaking? What is
I
this?
know. All right.
Oh.
I don't know it. Again, I don't know anything about punk rock music, and I certainly don't know anything about this band. But both of these songs are basically kind of in the they're like the wallpaper music of a lot of like the bars and clubs that I go to. And I've always thought of Waiting Room and the song Smoko by the Chats as being like the antithesis of each other. Because Waiting Room is I Am a Patient Boy, and Smoko's the chorus is I'm on my time, so leave me alone. I'm on my time.
I'm on my time, so leave me alone. I'm on my time, so leave me alone. I'm on my time, so leave me alone. I'm on my time, so leave me alone.
Hey guys, sorry, I have to interrupt because I'm editing the podcast and I added that Smoko song, and he's actually saying I'm on Smoko, so leave me alone, which I find really funny, but don't tell Ben. Don't tell him. Just go with it.
It's like the exact opposite. We got a patient boy. We got this guy just like, fuck off. It's my time.
Yeah. To be honest, I like both. I like both
it's
energies.
this real like Aussie accent, just like unbelievably thick. I'm on my time, mate. Leave me alone. Leave me alone.
It makes me think of whenever Sex Pistols did or whenever what's his name did My Way. He did Sinatra's I did it my way. I love that accent.
Hey. Have you a deep cut?
I do, and I've already mentioned it. My deep cut is 24-hour Party People by the Happy Mondays.
24-hour party people. Plastic face can't smile the whites out with the 24-hour party people. Plastic face can't smile the whites out. You can't be beaten.
The movie is called 24-Hour Party People, and it's about everybody doing ecstasy and staying up all night. But the song by the Happy Mondays is just, it's got a great beat. And when like you go watch the movie, they do so much focus on Bez up there dancing specifically to this song. It'll make you really like the song.
It'll make you want to do ecstasy again.
No, I don't.
No, I don't have the energy for it either.
It was like a week before I could get my brain right again. I was like, I don't have that kind of time. It's not that.
When was the last time you did it? I haven't done it since I was like in my early 20s.
I did it a lot with my ex, and then Corbin and I, maybe the year I got pregnant with Charlie, before I got pregnant with Charlie, neither of us had done it in years because we were just over it. We didn't do that anymore, but we went to one music festival, that Fun Fest that we do here in Houston in the summer. And a friend had it, and it was Molly then. And we were like, okay. And we did it, and it was awful. It wasn't everybody says pure MDMA is better than what we had in the 90s, and bullshit. What I had in the 90s had little pieces of heroin in it, and it was way better. This is awful. Nobody did what I did. It was awful. But the Molly I think it was just dirty. It was cut with something weird, and it was just like very like skitsy. And we were like, oh no, we don't like that. We like the thing where you bring out the lotion and you're feeling good and you're talking about your feelings. Yeah. Yeah.
It's just we don't have the time anymore.
No,
like I gotta get back to normal. I got shit I gotta do in the morning. I'm sorry, I can't. I don't have all day to recover.
And yeah, I understood the chemistry, because all ecstasy does is like whenever you're feeling good, your brain puts serotonin over one of your synapses. And like when you're happy, that's what you're feeling. And what ecstasy does at the chemical level is releases all of it, all the serotonin your body can make. It releases all of it at once. So you feel so good that you can't even handle it. But then you run out, and then so then you take more, and the serotonin's gone. So all you're getting is like whatever's left over in the pill, like cocaine or whatever, to keep you up. Yeah. And then you're just like, and then it takes like a week or two of like eating your vitamins and your broccoli to rebuild serotonin back in your brain. And I'm like, yeah, I can't do that. I can't do that anymore.
I can't be without serotonin for a whole week.
It's crazy, because like that was the first time I was never like a depressed person, really. I had more anxiety. And that was the first time I understood chemical depression, because I was like, it's not that I'm depressed, it's that I can't, like, I'm talking about the down after doing exercise, having no serotonin. I was like, I just can't get happy, which reminds me of what Fiona Apple said in our last episode. She's like, I chemically cannot feel happy. I was like, oh, she just didn't have serotonin. But I was like, my favorite thing in the world could happen. Like Martin Gore from Depeche Mode could walk into my room and express love for me, and I would just be like this, like, okay.
That's fine. I was at a
can't
rave
get
last night.
happy chemically. And I was like, ooh, who wants to feel like that for a week afterwards? It's not worth it.
And we won't.
Do you know what you're going to bring us next week?
I don't know what we're going to bring us next. Is it my turn again next week?
Yeah, we're just going back and forth now till the end.
Okay, till the end.
Till the bitter end. Yeah.
We got to set a date and find out when that is. All right, I'll let you know. It's going to be another surprise.
No, okay. Surprise is good.
Surprises is good?
Yep.
Are you ready?
I am ready.
And vogue it.
Vogue. Rock the Cash Bar is produced by Diane Gallagher, music by Chuck Savage and Eddie Hawkins. Special thank you to Jeremy Essig for 6 Degrees and to Sarah Wessling for the Guilty Pleasures vocals. Our website is rockthecashbarpodcast.com, and there you can find links to our Spotify playlist and to our Patreon. Thank you for tuning in, and we will see you next week.